Good morning. Welcome back into Wake Up America. I'm Rob Finnerty. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki was asked if President Biden has confidence in the CDC after 2 years of mixed COVID messages, to say the least, and the job that they've done on behalf of the American people in today's Psaki Dodge.
He has confidence in the scientific expertise, the medical expertise of the team at the CDC, and he believes the American people had a desire, a need for us to address this pandemic led by data and science, and that's what he's going to continue to rely on.
Oh, boy. Led by science, by the way, is like an oxymoron. Now, I don't know why over the summer with the Georgia voting law, when people were boycotting like Delta and Home Depot, which is based in Georgia, why didn't they boycott the CDC and CNN? They are both based in Atlanta, Georgia. Like, wouldn't that make more sense? Let's get some reaction. Let's welcome in the Powerhouse panel. We start with former New York Congresswoman and Independent Women's Forum Chair Nan Hayworth, Project 21 National Advisory Board member Christopher Arps, and the CEO of Chickasaw Bank and Oklahoma Transportation Commissioner T.W. Shannon back with us. And I said that at the time, by the way, TW, like, wouldn't it make sense, to boycott those two companies, like the headquarters for misinformation, CNN?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's interesting, though. I've kind of evolved on Jen Psaki, I got to tell you, Rob.
Ooh, how so?
She has the hardest job in America, trying to defend an absent president who's not leading, who's not setting out an agenda, whose only method of operation of leading the country is blaming people who are the victims, right? That's what he does, and she has to go out and defend it every day. I mean, you take the COVID situation right now, which she was addressing. At the end of the day, we have to have a real discussion about the viability of the vaccines and their ability to protect us. Right now, we had over 1 million people diagnosed in one day with COVID. It's completely out of control, and Joe Biden's spin machine just isn't working with the American people anymore, and Jen Psaki has to lead that. So it's a very tough job.
So
I will
don't forget, though, it's a job
others do it a lot better.
So I agree with you partially. She signed up for this job, and I'll just tell you, as a journalist, if you work in communications, if you're behind the scenes in comms for a candidate or an elected official, being the White House press secretary is like, that's the goal. Like, you want to be the White House press secretary. By the way, I don't think Jen Psaki's got a harder job than Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Kayleigh McEnany, or Sean Spicer, for that matter, the adversarial media that he had
I don't
for
know,
4
Rob.
years.
When you have to defend Joe Biden every day, no one could anticipate that his decline would be this great and as this sudden as it's been. And I think that's where she's having the hardest time, because I think a lot of times she's making it up as she goes on her
A lot
feet.
of times? TW, take a listen to this. Here's one for you. Here's Jen Psaki yesterday. Today, of course, marks 1 year since the riots at the U.S. Capitol. Here's Jen Psaki talking about the 45th president. Take a listen.
I'd also note that President Biden has been clear-eyed about the threat the former president represents to our democracy, and how the former president constantly works to undermine basic American values and rule of law.
Joe Biden, Nan, as a former member of Congress, ran on a theme of America United. That was the theme on Inauguration Day a year ago. He had a big banner right underneath the U.S. Capitol where he took the oath of office. Is language like that? We have got a country that is incredibly divided, especially today. There's a magnifying glass on us today because we're so divided. Is language like that from the White House press secretary productive in any way at all, except for in the halls of MSNBC and CNN?
It's not, Rob. It is seeking to demonize not only President Trump, whose conspicuous policy successes, including Operation Warp Speed that developed the vaccines that the Biden administration is trying so desperately to get into arms in this country. But they are desperately trying to deflect attention from President Trump's policy successes. They want to demonize him. And not just that, Rob, and this is why it's particularly divisive. President Trump had and continues to have a lot of support among the American people. About half the American people think that President Trump's at least okay. And, those impressions have improved over the past disastrous year. So this is just a terrible way for a dwindling, diminished, incompetent president to try somehow to elevate himself. All he's doing is dragging down everybody.
That's a good point, Nan. Christopher, President Trump was supposed to address the nation today. And when I saw that initially, Myself and Heather Childers are going to be anchoring our coverage of his first 2022 rally in Arizona next Saturday. We'll be here in New York doing that. We'll have folks like John Bachman out there in Arizona on the ground as well. When I heard that, I thought of the State of the Union, because one party delivers their message and then you have counter-programming. You've got Marco Rubio taking a sip of water. You've got former Congressman Joe Kennedy with the weird chapstick on delivering the counter message. That's what I thought today would be like with President Trump. He canceled that. Why do you think that is?
You know, Rob, I think President Trump had no intention whatsoever of giving a press conference on January 6th. We've seen for the last 4 or 5 years he is a master showman. I think this was just to drum up a bunch of publicity because President Trump saying something on January 6th anniversary is probably not a good political move. I think this was he was doing all this to set up the hype for his rally that he's having on January 15th. So people really want to hear what he has to say about January 6th. But I never believed that he was going to have a press conference.
That's a really
January
good point.
6th.
I hadn't thought about that, but you're right. It does build the anticipation for what happens, and we'll be covering that wall to wall a week from Saturday. Looking forward to it. TW, I'm wondering why we don't hear more about the incredible lapses in security on January the 6th. I mean, what happened? I don't know why the Capitol Police were so unprepared, and I don't know why that's not a bigger part of what this partisan January 6th commission is quote unquote investigating.
Yeah, that's the only thing that I think should be investigated at this point. The FBI has done its job. The people who broke the law have been charged. They've been held accountable. What we should be investigating is exactly what you mentioned, Rob. Why did we have a lapse in security where we had people able to enter the Capitol? I mean, this should be one of the most secure buildings in the world. We knew that there were hundreds of people gathered. There are people gathered in Washington, D.C. all the time. I'm a former D.C. staffer. I'm sorry, congressional staffer. I never actually worked in the D.C. office. I was in the local office. But I can tell you that building has always had a level of security that seems to supersede what happened on January 6th. So you're right. And I think the answer to your question is why we're not learning more is because ultimately the buck stops with the Speaker of the House. It is Nancy Pelosi for whom the Sergeant at Arms reports to. It is her responsibility to make sure that that building is secure ultimately, and I think that's why we're not hearing more about it.
Yeah, the president and vice president going to address the nation about 45 minutes from now. By the way, we should mention this. The president didn't go to Waukesha. More people died in Waukesha. Those Kentucky tornadoes. TW, you're in Oklahoma. The Oklahoma City bombing. What a tragedy in the mid-'90s. But Ashley Babbitt, she was shot, unarmed, 35-year-old military veteran. She was shot by a security guard in the Capitol. That's the only death inside the Capitol that day. One person died from a drug overdose out on the grounds, and 3 people died from natural causes. 2, we think, from heart attacks. But they talk about this like it was worse than 9/11 when we lost almost 3,000 Americans, 2,996, not to mention the people that were injured, by the way. Quickly, we just have about 15 seconds, Christopher. Final thought.
I was going to say, speaking of all the defections from the West Wing and the Vice President's office, remember, Jen Psaki is supposed to be leaving at the end of this month from her job as
To be honest,
secretary.
I thought she'd be gone already. She said she'd be done in 1 year. But you're right. Kamala Harris, now 5 high-profile departures from her office. What does that say about somebody who still technically is the heir apparent for the Oval Office? A topic for another day, maybe tomorrow. Panel, really enjoyed it this morning. Dan Hareworth, great to see you. Christopher Arps, always a pleasure. TW, guest fill-in here. Good to see you, my friend. We'll see you again soon.